In breaking news, the United States is warning that United States citizens should evacuate in Venezuela. This draws attention, obviously, because it means that things don't seem like they're going to calm down over there in Venezuela. Obviously, this is concerning because the armed Chavista groups are reportedly looking for United States citizens, according to reports. I mean, this is far from over. And well, it's believed that this time the risk would mainly be for United States citizens. Obviously, this is possibly a direct action by Diosdado Cabello, who is the one in charge of the colectivos exactly. And well, Washington is warning that the armed Chavista colectivos would be tracking Americans. This, after Maduro's capture, calls for an immediate evacuation according to the same alert from the State Department. According to the warning, it comes basically a week after Maduro's capture, an event that has triggered a series of internal reactions, including power outages and some disturbances as well. On the other hand, alleged agreements between the United States and what is the government of Delcy Rodriguez. Right now, Venezuela holds the highest classification in the United States Travel Alert System. Do not travel due to risks that include torture, unjust detention, terrorism, kidnappings, and arbitrary enforcement of local laws.
And it is known that in the official statement, it is detailed that these militia groups, known as the colectivos, these people who ride motorcycles are setting up checkpoints, blocking roads, and searching vehicles looking for United States citizens or sympathizers. The United States government asked its citizens to leave Venezuela immediately and also took advantage of the recent reopening of international flights. Since March 2019, the United States has had no diplomatic services in Venezuela. Recently, we noted that United States government officials were traveling to Caracas to possibly restart or reopen the embassy. But it has been closed since 2019, by the way. There is already a reaction from the Venezuelan government.
Let's look at this reaction, but well, the diplomatic mission, obviously. In Caracas, despite tensions, a United States delegation led by John McMara arrived to assess the situation and potential embassy reopening. What has the Caracas government said? Has Delcy Rodriguez responded or commented?
Yes, well, Delcy's government has just made a statement about this alert. And it says that this accusation is based on non-existent accounts, aimed at creating a perception of risk that doesn't exist.
In other words, the government...
They deny everything.
They deny everything, right? Obviously, they're still waiting for them to release the political prisoners. The political prisoners are still incarcerated. They've released a few, but the vast majority are still detained, as we mentioned today in a report we did in the afternoon. While Venezuelans are still seeking freedom, they're still trying to put an end to that regime. Today, several Venezuelans, both inside and outside the country, wrote to us and all agree the regime is unchanged or even worse. In other words, there hasn't been any change yet. And yes, you can celebrate Maduro's fall. But obviously the regime remains, and this well also keeps a lot of people on edge. Millions of people right now just don't know. They're facing uncertainty about what's going to happen, whether there will really be a change or not. But there's even nervousness on social media when it comes to speaking out. There's not really a... Let's say that information is handled, well, as discreetly as possible. I mean, people don't speak freely, obviously out of fear of what might happen. And right now, if they see you with a comment, a photo, anything, if you've celebrated the topic of leaving the regime, whether in Venezuela or even in Nicaragua, well, there could even be some pretty serious problems. A series of situations have also been unfolding around Caracas where you can see military movements, you can see movements of these groups. No, they haven't stopped. They're arming themselves. There are images from day one showing how these groups are being armed by the military. The situation is far from over. The risks, the political dangers, the armed threats, well, they are or continue to be a problem. The healthcare infrastructure has collapsed, and the chronic failures in public services also persist. There is a risk for foreigners and especially for the American presence. There have also been reports of several groups of foreign journalists who have been detained. They either release them or make them delete their material. That's also part of this ongoing dynamic because continuously, like any repressive regime, it stays exactly the same. In that sense, there doesn't seem to be any real change. And well, what did change? The only thing that changed is that there aren't those little dances that Maduro used to do and things like that. No, well, yes.
But basically, it's the same, but not worse, because at least, I don't know, there wasn't so much tension. You didn't see these groups checking cell phones, basically anyone passing by on the highways. There's no nightlife in Venezuela, in Caracas, apparently, from what is being reported. Well, it's a strange situation.
A strange situation, and now you see the issue is serious. They're paranoid about getting caught at any moment or being targeted. And at the same time, well, they make a calculation, right? The calculation that Maduro got wrong. That no, it's not going to happen to me. No, they're not going to come for me. Until it happened to, well, it's been reported, and that's been going on since day 2, that certain types of weapons were used, like sonic weapons or weapons, I don't know which ones. Well, that's a topic that also falls a bit into mystery and all that, because obviously this isn't revealed. I mean, there are simply testimonies that claim this, but also, well, a bit of legend is created around it. All kinds of situations, obviously. So yes, there were new weapons, that's clear, and there are testimonies we've seen about supposed buzzing sounds, right? That too, about a kind of sonic weapon that was apparently used. And well, since we're already on this topic, let's take a look, because this is what's happening. Let's say within the topic mainly handled by Diosdado, but there's another matter that's handled directly by Delcio Rodriguez, and that also draws attention. It seems like a bigger challenge is coming. It seems like there was just a reshuffling, Maduro was removed, things were rearranged, and things are going to stay the same or get worse. So it seems that's how things are going. Let's get into that topic. Let's talk about that situation. Just let me check if we're broadcasting. Yes, everything's good, great. I can see it now. I can see it, great. I can see that the community is here. Happy weekend. Let's go to the information about what's happening in the world. Let's talk about this kind of challenge that Delcio Rodriguez himself is putting out, right? This guy who obviously keeps generating not only concern and uncertainty, but also, well, nobody knows what his approach is going to be. He says one thing one day, then something else another. Let's discuss that. Delcio Rodriguez would be directly challenging Donald Trump. Now, well, this time without masks, right? This surely is being reviewed by Donald Trump's team. At one point he said, yes, whatever Trump says will happen, and he talks with Diosdado, and yes, whatever Diosdado says, basically agreeing with whoever he talks to. He tells everyone yes, but never says when. They call her acting president, not president. That's the title they've given her.
To say president.
Exactly. Will he remain in charge while Maduro and Silvia Flores are still detained in New York? Delcy spoke out again as the acting president of Venezuela after the capture of President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, she says. Rodriguez said today on BTV that the Venezuelan people are in charge and there is a government under President Nicolas Maduro. She emphasized her mandate is temporary, lasting only while the president is, as she put it, kidnapped. Rodriguez reiterated she will not rest until Maduro and Flores, held in New York on multiple corruption, drug trafficking, and other charges, are recovered.
Well, yes. Rodriguez described this military operation by the United States as a criminal aggression that will remain as a great stain on the relations between Venezuela and the United States, and Donald Trump has stated that he has a very good relationship with the interim government of Venezuela. He said this just yesterday, and that it will remain. Basically, that they have been very smart, that they have known how to work with the United States government. And that's why he had canceled the second attack he had planned for Venezuela. Well, Washington has also announced that it will manage the sales of Venezuelan oil and transfer the revenues to the country as they are generated from the sale of the oil.
Well, then what's going to be interesting here is this. If Donald Trump still thinks the same, if he still thinks he's making smart moves or not, then that's what it's going to be. The same. Trump keeps thinking he's making smart moves. The same Trump. If he keeps thinking he's making smart moves, it wouldn't be and what seemed like a move. The smart ones, well, are going to be the same Trump whether he still thinks he's making smart moves or not. Then, well, he keeps thinking it's going to be the same. Trump keeps thinking making smart moves.
That's why we also see this sudden split in Bell's comments. But it's because for a moment, on one hand, he has to maintain this agreement, or apparently this agreement he has with the United States. And on the other hand, he has to keep up appearances or the facade that he agrees with Nicolas Maduro's government continuing.
Exactly. And let's say he has to play both sides now, basically. They never said between a rock and a hard place here. Not the wall, not the comments. Here they said it's being between a rock and a hard place. But it's also a move, which is something he was looking for, right? Those who have followed Venezuelan politics say that both she and her brother have always wanted power, and now that they have it. Well, that's what is known from Chavez's own comments, who always said that they were people who were ambitious for power. That she didn't have Chavista ideals, but basically just wanted to climb up at any cost. That fact, well, it shows a characteristic of, well, also a lot of ambition for power. So, right now the moves, well, you could say it's one thing or another, but in the end, they're probably just moves. They choose what's convenient for her so her brother can stay in power. I mean, they're two people with ambitions who want to stay there to hold on to power, not move. This also, I imagine, must have movements and pressures from other countries like Cuba, like Nicaragua, right? Even powers like Russia, like China could also be influencing that situation a bit and giving that country some security. We have to remember that these two powers in particular have interests in saving minerals. Right now, they're looking at how Venezuela is being divided among powers, but at the same time, it doesn't seem to be coming from either side. The changes people would like, that's the other part. You don't see how a change could happen the way people would want. No, in fact, a stable government, a government that actually represents them in any case.
Exactly, they left them halfway, but even worse, right? They removed the clown, but everything else remains.
The circus still exists. Incredible. And well, let's move on to other important matters, because while all this tug of war is happening, things are going on in Venezuela, things are happening in Honduras, and things are happening in Iran. Well, a lot of things, a solar storm. By the way, all at the same time. Well, in a little while, we'll analyze it just quickly. To the community that's watching us, thank you so much for leaving your comments. We'll definitely be paying attention at the end of Well, quickly, to those watching us, thank you so much for your just in case. Attentive. End of this video. Here is an incredible community, and you can subscribe if you like. Let's move on to other matters. Let's move on to other topics, also important about what's happening in the world. Before we move on to another topic, just quickly check out these curious images. This is happening. Incredible. And subscribe if the car, right? Obviously it fell. Incredible. What's happening in there? He took his little dog out for a walk, he said. Well, I might as well make him a sled, and well, at least to the block. He didn't take him for a walk around the block. Let him get tired for a while. And meanwhile, a little walk around there, just look at the little dog going around. Aneo. Obviously, well, dogs already used to it, obviously, to the temperatures of those parts of the world. But anyway, let's go. Let's move on to other important matters happening in the world. There's a solar storm happening right now, and well, as you know, when there are solar storms, interesting situations can occur, especially when thinking about space weather. Regarding the signals, the auroras that will be visible, by the way, at the latitude of England, more or less at that height, the northern lights will be observable. Today, this post was made prior to the storm. This scientist, Dr. Tamita Stop, who we should also follow up with, is mentioned here. By the way, this doctor works for space weather. She is also part of Weather Channel, was part of National Aeronautics and Space Administration and other institutions over there in the United States. She showed this image in which she claimed that we were already in the process of a storm. Total solar storm, which is the term used when there is already a complete storm. She said that it was already in that process, that it was going to be a G1, G2, she says. The expected solar storm is already here. It's already reaching Earth. It was an irregular substorm period caused by fast solar wind. So we were still waiting, she says, as total geomagnetic storm conditions began. Initially, G2 levels were expected, but they were probably stabilizing around G1 levels. The auroras descend to latitudes approximately as far as the United Kingdom, Northern Europe. You'll be able to see and enjoy then a northern spectacle. At night, you'll be able to observe these storms, or rather those northern lights. For Fernando and for those watching us in Sweden, those watching us over there in the United Kingdom, from those places, I send you a big greeting. And if you have a clear sky and there isn't much light in your town, in your homeland, in the city where you live, you'll be able to go out at night and enjoy some very impressive northern lights. Remember, they don't last all night. So you would have to be very, very patient because they can last about 40 or 45 minutes. Then they start to fade and eventually disappear. So it's not all night, but you can enjoy them. You can go out to see them. And if you're patient and bundled up so you're not too cold, you'll be able to enjoy them. The solar storms are still happening very intensely because officially that solar maximum hasn't ended yet. Every 11 or 12 years, there's a solar maximum that reaches the planet from this solar activity and causes all of this. In theory, it should have already ended, but it hasn't officially ended yet. They haven't declared it over. They have to wait for a period of months to say, you know what, the level is already going down. Now we are officially in the process of the cycle that's going to go down, and then later it will go back up again. Just because you're in a low cycle doesn't mean there won't be storms. There can still be storms, like when there are those sudden, unexpected storms during times that aren't usually rainy. Well, it's the same thing. Very intense solar storms can also happen here, even during, let's say, low cycles. That's true. What happens is that there are fewer of them. There can be storms, even strong ones, but not as many. And that's also important, so it's good to clarify what's happening in other parts of the world quickly. What's happening obviously in Ukraine is that it's been confirmed. Today, a Russian oil base was hit by Ukraine, an oil base. With this strategy, the goal is to reduce Russia's energy potential and try to at least slow down the Russian machinery in its attacks. in Ukraine.
Exactly. Reports from Ukraine's general staff say they attacked a refinery and oil base in Russia's Volgograd region. And the general staff confirmed that the target was hit also in territory controlled by Russia. In the southern region of Zaporizhzhia, a drone warehouse belonging to the authorized division unit was also hit. 19 Russian riflemen are also said to have struck a drone command and control point in the area, on purpose there, in what is Donetsk.
Well, the attack is mainly in this area, not in the southeastern part of Ukraine, which is where the operations have been taking place. Ukrainian, not Russian attacks. The situation, well, I wouldn't say it's getting more intense. It's just that the war doesn't stop. It doesn't take breaks. Suddenly, there are some days with fewer attacks, but obviously the war continues.
Today, the Ukrainian government sent a message to Iran, to the protesters in Iran, expressing their support and asking the international community to support the protests.
Let's see what happens, as I think these protests have drawn a lot of attention this time. So much so that even the European Union has spoken about the issue, and even Trump himself has already been issuing warnings. Right now we're going to talk about what the New York Times has revealed regarding these moves that could come from Trump and the United States toward Iran. Today, the Wall Street Journal already did an analysis and also made a very interesting leak. But then there was another one after the New York Times that would also be really good for us to talk about. And it seems like something from the United States is imminent if the operations go that way. But right now, let's see what it is. What does seem like it's going to happen and what doesn't seem like it's going to happen? Because there are several intelligence sites out there that are usually very accurate when an attack is coming. They usually, see it based on the intelligence data they receive. Something is coming, but there aren't any obvious movements this time. Or they're doing it too subtly, which could also happen and make it surprising, or maybe simply nothing is happening. And it's just a lot of talk, just to put pressure on the Iranian regime. But maybe, there's nothing behind it, right? That could also be another situation, so let's move on to other important matters. He says that before anything else, he wants to tell the community that's watching us, just thank you very much for your support. And if you want to support us, it's down below. There are several ways in the description. There it is. We have a PayPal, we have an OXXO account, and we also have it here on YouTube. I mentioned Super Chat because in the end, it's an independent international news channel. And it's the community that makes this news project possible and sustainable. So, I'm grateful to the community that supports us. And honestly, this is an effort that they make happen. Some don't, and it's that small group that does. I'm also very grateful to them for being able to do it and for supporting us in that way. The truth is, it's a topic we've dedicated years to, and now, not even weekends. We're here, as you can see. Today is Saturday, tomorrow is Sunday, and we don't stop, right? I'm not sure if that's sustainable. Maybe it isn't. At some point, we'll have to rest, right? We'll have to take a few days off at some point. But as they say, there will be time for that, right? In the meantime,
let's just keep going all out with the news.
But anyway, let's move on to other matters. Let's also go to other important points about what's happening in the world. Let's go with, precisely with what's happening with this flyer. Let's go with that. It has been reported, and this is a very concerning issue because it is claimed that the United States and Donald Trump specifically, they may have already started to, plan a possible military intervention in Groenlandia, a forceful takeover of Groenlandia. Several things are happening with this issue, but we can start there if you want.
Several media reports indicate they're covering the story. This Donald Trump had ordered his special forces commanders, like the Deltas, to come up with a plan for an invasion of Greenland. In other words, what was necessary, what plans existed, what could be done. But according to high-ranking military officials, they resisted making these plans. Ultimately, Denmark isn't an enemy. It's an ally and a NATO member. Several Republicans have also openly rejected this idea from Donald Trump.
They have been blunt. Simply put, what the Republicans have said is that it can't be done and it shouldn't be done because, okay, do you win? A territory that would require years, some believe even decades, before it could become profitable. There are areas where there are 1, 2, even 3 kilometers of ice depth. I mean, it would be extremely expensive, a cost that would be just too high, because many countries would say things like, I can't do business with a country that even attacks its friends, and then a blockade would start to happen. Several voices in Europe have already said that if the situation in Greenland occurs, the United States would need to withdraw all its bases from Europe. I mean, it would be like gaining some ground, but losing everything you've achieved in decades of global influence, right? In fact, I think there would be major powers like Russia and China that would be very happy if this happened because it could give other powers a chance. They might say, be friends with me instead. I don't betray real friends. This would seem like a betrayal and be very costly. The point is that this is being seen and taken seriously. And that's the part that causes concern. So much so that NATO and Denmark are involved. They've had to hold meetings among themselves to see what they could do in case a situation of this level arises, not an entry. Today, Trump addressed whether to handle things the easy or hard way. I'm not sure if that's true, but let's continue. Isn't he playing the same game?
Stephen Miller, one of the advisors, is acting very emboldened. What happened in Venezuela has made them feel very powerful. And well, he's the one who brings up the idea and reminds him, once Trump gets an idea in his head, he doesn't let it go, right? And Stephen Miller basically fans the flames, as they say, adds fuel to the fire. He keeps it going so that this idea continues. Because several of the military officials say that, well, they try to steer him away and tell him, look, it's better to stop this, the oil tankers from Russia's Ghost Fleet. It's better to do this, it's better to do that. But Stephen Miller keeps adding fuel to the fire, keeps stoking the flames, however you want to say it. And it's because of this, not because he feels ahead, but because of the success they had with Nicolas Maduro. But now it's clear that it was really only a partial success. No, because they were missing 2 people there. Well,
and I mean, the point is that their plan worked out for them. Trump with the Maduro issue, that even though many countries friendly to the United States, like England, France, Germany, etc., criticized this move, they criticized it, but they said it was good because you dealt with Maduro, but bad because that's not how things are done, etc., etc. The point is that, well, that's it. That's exactly why they did it, because they know a movement like this tempts people to think, should I do another one now? But then for another interest like Greenlandia or Mexico or wherever, I mean, they start looking somewhere else.
Today they are given. The Democrats warned Marco Rubio not to make moves in Mexico, saying it would be a huge mistake and a danger for the United States.
They called it would be a disaster. That's the word used by the same Republicans, the same congressmen who have also warned, well, and that's a topic you were talking about the other day. And for you to have a country that truly prospers and becomes a power, you need to have friends among your neighbors. I mean, your neighbors can't be your enemies, because then sooner or later they're going to cause you a serious problem and you can't prosper. They won't let you prosper. That's also why, for example, that part of Russia has had a very hard time prospering. Because obviously, as long as you're fighting with your enemies and spending resources, how are you going to prosper? No matter how much land and things you have? Likewise, China doesn't have it easy. They've already had and right now they don't, but they've already had their problems with Russia. North Korea is armed, well, maybe not to the teeth, but it does have military power, although not as much as China, obviously, but let's say it has many powerful enemies around it. The United States has 2 countries that have always been peaceful with the United States, especially in modern times. If polarization continues, we've seen what happened with Canada. Now Canada is also on alert and uncertain.
It's having more and more meetings with China. It's dangerous when your neighbors start siding with your worst enemy.
Right, Preciosa? Watching? It's going to be a mess. As Chuck Moon says here, it's definitely going to be chaos, says Chuck. How have you been, Chuck Draper? How have you been? Cheers, Denison. To everyone in the community who's joining, awesome. The place is getting really cool.
Cool.
Chichiquechesca, Chichiquechesca. Well, let's move on to other important matters as well. A curious matter as well, just before we move on to another of today's main topics, but I find this one interesting, at least exactly. We have to be quite grateful for it. Notice that it's being reported here in Mexico that Haitian and Venezuelan migrants have saved the coffee harvest in southern Mexico. According to what EFE reports, small coffee producers in the Tapachu region on the border between Mexico and Guatemala told the EFE news agency today that they have replaced the historic Guatemalan workforce. They usually come from Guatemala for the season, stay here for a while, work in the coffee fields, and then leave. But this time, well, they haven't come from Guatemala. Let's just say harvesting the coffee crop was going to be very difficult. Haitian migrants from Cuba, and Venezuelans were hired for the coffee harvest, and they helped save it. There is currently a worker shortage in some regions of Mexico, which in this case had to be replaced by Haitians, Cubans, and Venezuelans. It's a very interesting topic. The truth is that sometimes those kinds of news almost go unnoticed. Exactly.
And right now, as Pepe says, there's a pretty critical point in coffee growing here in Mexico. And it's this severe lack of labor that's also linked to this migratory phenomenon in recent years. And with the arrival of these migrants, fortunately, we've also been able to recover some of the Mexican youth workforce who have left for Mexico City or other countries, for example.
Yes, they've moved elsewhere for opportunities they couldn't find before, and now they're finding them in other countries. Well, it's a mess, but obviously, well, it's interesting and it's good to know that we're going to have coffee, partly thanks to these people as well. Now, another issue, another important point as well. In the midst of all this situation, there's something curious that happened regarding Venezuela, something odd, something strange. Let's talk about that. Reports indicate that during the United States attack, a rarely mentioned attack also occurred inside Venezuela. It's an attack that was carried out on a scientific laboratory and, well, it would be, well, part of the objectives. Apparently, the Venezuelan Institute of Scientific Research, called Venezuelan Institute of Scientific Research, one of the most important scientific centers in Latin America, was targeted by United States missile attacks during the recent operation. It stands out because, in theory, the idea was to attack weapons depots. The plan was to attack airports and specific areas, but this time, the facilities were damaged.
Interestingly, this laboratory houses what was one of the first nuclear reactors in Latin America. And, well, the damage has not yet been quantified, but, well, the Venezuelan Institute has drawn a lot of attention. 2 missiles fell on these facilities, causing severe structural damage, shattered windows, collapsed roofs, and pierced walls, also leaving several scientific areas completely destroyed.
The attack damaged laboratories in the chemistry center, in the physics area, essential elements for analyzing and processing oil exploitation, a key part of the country's economy. The mathematics center, which also houses the National University of Sciences, became unusable after the bombing. Scheduled stem cell treatments for children with bone malformations were halted, according to the director of the cellular therapy unit, Jose Cardiel.
And, well, the scientists from Venezuelan Institute of Scientific Research pointed out that beyond the structural damage to the area, the moral blow affects them greatly. For the scientists who had made these medical advances, right?
Well, what else?
And, well, the scientists obviously warn about the harm when it comes to quantifying the progress. All that has been lost amid these scientific advances, studies, and analyses from that time.
Well, let's see what can be observed, what can be analyzed about this topic.
Because they destroyed it?
Yes, it's reported. So what happened there with that issue? Because, well, those are the kinds of things that are in that strange fog that this whole situation creates. Many times, well, as they say, reality isn't black and white. We should also look at what was around that laboratory, what they were doing. Maybe there was something there that caught their attention for the interests of the United States. And maybe try to fix something related to oil. One of the things Trump has repeated the most since before the attack was the interest in the oil issue, which is a situation that he hasn't denied. In fact, he's actually boasted about it and said, well, yes, that's one of the intentions to operate, and he's already boasted that they're going. The first 30 million barrels for the United States, in theory, should be arriving soon. Besides, oil will start being supplied soon, and the entire economic side will be managed by the United States. What I found interesting today is that Donald Trump signed an executive order, in which the executive order blocks any attempt by companies to take their money away. So, because of the debts Venezuela has with companies, could those companies sue the United States and say, hey, that money you're taking, you have to give it to me first because they owe me? Well, now it won't be possible. All the money, 100% of the money, he says. This executive order will be, let's say, managed, administered by the United States, and it has to be used. That's what the executive order says. It must be used for peace, population matters, and similar issues. In other words, it protects the money, in theory, for the use of Venezuelans themselves. Well, I think that's interesting because there could be temptations to start using that money for other things. Of course, we shouldn't be too naive about that either. I mean, obviously with Donald Trump managing that money, it's not like the money is going to go directly to them and they're going to hand it out in person, right? That money will buy products in the United States, which will then be sent to Venezuela. All of that is paid for with Venezuela's own oil. So the salaries, the shipping, everything involved, the whole process of sending the products over there to Venezuela, whether it's medicine, food, or whatever is most needed in Venezuela, it will be sent there thanks to that oil. So, well, that's something we hope works and really helps. Now, we would have to analyze if there will be extra costs, which is most likely those things that we already know how they work.
Not exactly. By the way, since we're on the topic of Venezuela, Senator Rick Scott just sent a warning to Nancy Rodriguez. He says, Nancy Rodriguez, she should be warned that we expect her to guarantee the safety of all Americans in Venezuela and to protect them from any harm. The world is watching.
Okay, so up until now, is there any reaction? So Rodriguez throws down the challenge and Rick Scott.
Senator wants him to watch out for the Americans.
Okay, Rick Scott. So he issues the warning of let's calm down or calm your troops, calm your people because, well, no, yes, well, there it is now. This isn't a direct warning from Donald Trump. I believe if things continue, since this is the State Department, it ultimately leads back to Donald Trump. The information, so I think there could also be a reaction in that sense. Greetings, how are you, Francisco, Tapatia Caribe? To the whole community that's joining, thank you very much. Let's move to other important matters. Let's move on to other important matters as well about what's happening in the world. A topic that caught my attention today as well. It's about the more than 1,000 protests being reported in the United States, this against the AIS. These are mostly scheduled protests, with some already held. So, what will happen with this situation? These are protests out of anger from a good portion of Americans who see this. The AIS issue was handled very poorly, and all of this...
Exactly. The National Coalition of groups that are organizing organizers, just like they organized the No Kings event, well, now they're organizing this one called AIS Action Weekend. Out for good. Using the last name of this 37-year-old woman, a United States citizen who lost her life at the hands of one of the AIS. And while they have coordinated 1,006 protests and planned events for this weekend, most of which took place today, Saturday. Protests are taking place today after Rennie Nicole Wood's loss.
And well, there it is. Clearly, it was logical for there to be a reaction. Obviously, the comments from the governor, from the area, from the mayor, and from Minneapolis, and all of that, very harsh. I mean, really, really angry. There was even a police officer, a sheriff, who came out and said something. Basically, she implied or said that she was going to arrest people from Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and no. Well, obviously, this could escalate a lot because there was a mayor involved. These are the kinds of things that can really polarize a society like the one in the United States right now. And well, obviously that part is concerning, but let's move on to other interesting topics as well. Well, there's a tremendous situation going on where they're trying to carry out a kind of coup or self-coup in Honduras. Honduras is currently going through a tremendous situation in which countries like Guatemala, Costa Rica, Paraguay, Peru, the Dominican Republic, Argentina, and Bolivia came out to make this joint statement. Well, in rejection of this decree that Xiomara Castro is trying to order, basically to have another recount in order to cancel the elections, it seemed it was fixed, everything seemed solved, and suddenly it seems that President Xiomara has other information and wants to annul the elections because her candidate didn't win. And this would practically be a self-coup, I mean, not accepting who won. It seemed to be due to pressure from the United States. By the way, Donald Trump, he sent out another message saying, hey, be careful with what you're doing there in Honduras, because if you don't respect the elections, there will be consequences. And well, this pressure seemed to have somewhat balanced things out. But now this statement comes out because there's a clear intention from the current government of Honduras to stage a self-coup.
Exactly. For a candidate who didn't even come in second place, she came in third and was quite far behind the other two. The ones who had more votes, that's it. The parliamentary resolution was pushed through Friday by the ruling party's majority, led by Board of Directors President Luis Redondo. The session was held without the presence of more than 70 opposition deputies. There, in Honduras, those who reported that they couldn't enter the chamber. Parliament argued that they are seeking to review more than 19,000 electoral acts which, according to the government, are considered incomplete or not fully scrutinized. For its part, the National Electoral Council already declared Nasri Asfura president-elect on December 24 and also published the results for mayors and deputies. In fact, I think even the military assured that they would support the decision of the National Electoral Council.
Well, that's the thing. The controversies continue in Honduras. We'll be keeping an eye on what happens. And well, friends from Honduras, please leave your comments. Let us know how you see the situation. Obviously, things are really intense right now. Apparently, Xiomara is tempted to annul the elections, right? And see if maybe, well, she can come back or put her own candidate in with, I don't know, with more power. I don't know what intentions, but this obviously looks like a kind of self-coup. And that's the fear, at least that's how I see it. It's the fear they have that a change of government might come, let's say, and that they might start looking into and checking the accounts. And how are they handling the things they might be hiding within the current outgoing government of Honduras? To be so obsessed with not giving up power? No.
Exactly, and interestingly, also the president-elect who was declared the winner by the Electoral Commission, Nasri Asfura, will go to the United States tomorrow, Sunday, and will meet with the Inter-American Development Bank. And he also plans to see how Americans operate. The specific participants haven't been decided yet, but the inauguration is planned for January 27th.
Thank you, that's settled. Let's move on to other important topics. There's a report of an earthquake that supposedly happened near Israel. They're talking about it right now, so let's get into the details, shall we? Due to the epicenter's closeness, it would have been felt. What they're reporting is that the earthquake would be a 4.110 kilometers deep off the coast of Lebanon, and that it apparently would have also been felt in Israel. I don't know if over there, basically more toward the southern part of Turkey, if it would have been felt or something like that, or in Syria, I'm not sure. No, I don't have that information, but it's interesting. Well, an earthquake this time, on this, I mean a day that, by the way, was also very active, right? Today we had this 6.5 earthquake in Indonesia. An earthquake that was felt in 3 or 4 countries. It was felt in the Philippines and 4 other countries around there, in those countries. Tiny ones, which are basically just little islands, but they also would have reported this earthquake as well. And well, obviously, that's also part of it. I mean, the one in Indonesia isn't that surprising since it's Indonesia, but the one in front of Israel is. Why? Because it's strange? These types of earthquakes are uncommon. Not that they're impossible, it's just that they don't happen every day. We're staying on this topic because it's important. What else is there? Something's going on in Thailand.
Exactly. Things haven't changed. Things haven't calmed down between Cambodia and Thailand, even though they recently signed another supposed peace agreement, and it's the second one after the one with Donald Trump. But today, it's reported that there was a bomb attack that affected 11 gas stations in southern Thailand. There was a series of coordinated bomb attacks targeting 11 PTT gas stations on the night of January 11th. And the attacks happened in 3 border provinces in southern Thailand, which are Narathiwat, where there were 5 attacks, Pattani with 2 sites, and Yala with 4 attacks. The authorities reported that malicious actors planted these explosives to cause unrest. Right now, the incidents are under full investigation. It's an issue that doesn't seem to calm down, does it?
No, far from calming down. The area between Cambodia and Thailand, this area is in constant conflict. Now they say that in other regions life is relatively normal, but the border area continues to be a constant problem. Let's not expect this to escalate into open conflict or total war yet, but Cambodia and Thailand are still far from resolution. No, these wars were supposed to be solved by Trump, but the conflict continued.
The 8 wars, the 8 of them.
The 8? I don't know how many wars.
He's always really tired because of those wars?
What does he say he has solved? Well, let's move on to other matters, other important topics as well. Iran is entering what they say is a final phase, and the phase is either there is a change within Iran, thank you, or maybe there will be a surrender from the young people, from the people who are protesting, because it's not just young people, right? They say that those who are protesting could hold out for 2 or 3 days, maybe a little more at most, and after that there will be exhaustion, they believe, and people will start to disperse. So it seems that the regime is going to try to hold out as long as it can so that people get tired. Look, right now the number of deaths is already huge, but there are official numbers, there are unofficial numbers, so there's a bit of everything. The detainees are in the thousands. I mean, there are thousands of people detained who will probably also end up among the dead. Because, well, that's also the reality. Also, Iran's Attorney General already said, this is against God, right? According to their view. And so, capital punishment, not just for those who are protesting, but also for those who support the protests in any way. This is total final repression. That's why I call it the final phase. What we're experiencing now is truly the end. There was discussion about an alleged message from Masoud Pezeshkian. Yesterday, it was claimed that Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian would resign. Today it was said that he was going to give a message to the nation. Well, up to now, at least as far as we know, there hasn't been a message yet, but that's how things are. The Wall Street Journal report claimed that they were already doing some pre-planning for attacks on Iran, but now the New York Times is saying other things, right? The New York Times now says that they would also be considering not operating, but thinking about what options the United States would have regarding that country. So at the end of the day, what's the update? What can we see?
Well, just a few moments ago, literally just a few moments ago, the crown prince of this race, Pablani, came out to give this message, which has really helped him a lot. It gives people a kind of boost, although we have to be very realistic. Iran has different groups. They're not all the same. They're not all from the same religion. Some groups are unhappy with the monarchy because their experiences differed from others in the country. But anyway, this person keeps saying that it's not his intention to rule Iran, that he would simply serve as an interim while a government is established. Well, today he released a message saying, "Know that you are not alone. Your compatriots all over the world proudly proclaim your voice, since you have surely seen the images of their numerous and extensive gatherings on your television screens. The world today supports your national revolution and admires your courage. President Trump, in particular, as the leader of the free world, has closely observed your indescribable violence, courage, and has announced that he is ready to help you. Don't leave the street. My heart is with you. I know I'll be with you soon because he already says he has plans to return to Iran."
He insists that the most he would do is a transitional government and that he would look for the most democratic option possible. But well, that's what he says, right? I mean, in the end, it's hard to know what the intention is. What is true is that he has already spent years being an active voice and being a voice in which, well, he has been moderate in the sense that he doesn't call for violence. He has always been someone who asks for, well, more like protests that are as peaceful as possible, that kind of thing. What he does ask for is that for there to be change, you need to be there. You can't abandon it right now, because if you do, the situation will get complicated. It won't settle down. Or, as these things always happen, either the regime ends up getting stronger, reinforcing itself, or, well, it ends completely. And that's the point we're living at right now. And then, well, this guy comes out, he doesn't really say much, and basically what he's become is kind of like a leader from the outside. Now, what's interesting here is that inside, well, many people are, let's say, standing up and facing things there. Well, a lot of really harsh images. Today, the image from the morgue came out showing how things are. Obviously, it's really tough, right? There are also images where they've tried to identify who the shooters are. So now there are images of multiple people shooting with different types of weapons. Yes, there's also a lot of material in the sense that in the future, all these people who were attacking civilians could be put on trial. Yeah, it's a really tough issue. It's possibly the last phase, at least of this stage or this moment of protests.
Remember this was supposed to come out? It didn't. Should I put it on? I will. It's weird. Did you mention it? Yes, I'll put it on. This one too. Another comment that Reza Pablani makes is that the current government of Iran is facing a great shortage of mercenaries to deal with the millions who are out on the streets, because that's what he says. As long as there are millions, it's very complicated for the government to control the situation, he says. Many security forces have already abandoned their posts or have disobeyed orders. Today, a soldier took a photo with Donald Trump. They were asking for help, saying they wouldn't go out anymore, and some were trying to control the situation, or rather, they took the lives of the protesters.
The problem I see right now, and I hope it's not like this, is that there's an order being published. I think it's also to scare them. An order was made public today that right now, the ones who have been shooting at them are either the police or mercenaries, as they say. But now there's talk that the army could actually get involved with the military entering the streets. And that's super dangerous because things could really get complicated. Hopefully, if they get that order, they won't follow it, right? I mean, hopefully they don't just go along with that order. And that order then Either it's the end of this regime, or this regime is going to become even more authoritarian and will hold on with its claws. So it's complicated. What comes next? The protests. Have they given us really powerful images of the group? Well, brave. And now they're already talking about burning banks, burning this and that.
Institutions?
Government offices, etc., right? Or yes?
There are areas, for example, in Alicante's homeland, where they say it literally looks like a war zone. I mean, there aren't many buildings destroyed during the day, and there's absolutely no one on the street. For example, yesterday, a government car went out on the street with one of those megaphones, telling the people at the bazaars, the vendors, to please open up. That they had to go back to their normal lives, but no, they haven't wanted to open.
I think that's also part of it. That's why I say it's a final phase, because today the oil workers' strike begins in full. Without oil, without open markets, without part of the police working. Well, that's what's left, right? I mean, what they really have left is to resign. That's what they can do, to resign and leave. There's already an escape plan. There's a plan for the way out. And well, that's a possibility. Obviously not, because right now even the oil workers are stopping operations. And I say clearly, it means a lot for a country that depends so much on oil, doesn't it? I think that's making other places nervous. Hopefully, a situation like that doesn't happen, since it paralyzes everything. And literally, right now, they're in that process of complete paralysis. The Iranians, where the protests are no longer just a small group of 2 or 3, isn't it the universities, entire universities? A good part of those in charge of shopping centers and small markets in Tehran and in the capitals in the main cities as well. Actually, and now, well, even oil workers, but anyway, let's move on to other matters. Let's go to other topics. Thank you very much, by the way, Angel Sempoal.
Thank you very much.
We really appreciate it, Angel, and to the whole community. If you want to support this channel, you can use Super Chat or Super Thanks. So how can you help this news channel? It's greatly appreciated, and thanks to you, we can be here. So really, every day, a hug. And well, let's move on to another matter. Let's go to another important topic as well. Goodbye to the comments. We'll keep analyzing what's happening, since this could be a long night and we might have to broadcast into the early morning. That's how I see it, right? If something obviously big happens, we'll be covering it. By the way, just to mention, we're at 10 degrees Celsius here. Is it freezing? Really freezing right now?
Tomorrow, Sunday, temperatures will drop overnight to about 6 degrees.
Yeah, the morning cold will be strong, and the humidity will make it feel colder than 6 degrees. It should be interesting. I imagine that for the center of the country, it should be the same. The cold should be reaching Texas, over there, California. The whole area should be getting the cold. Thank you, Lily, and welcome as a channel member. Thanks again. How have you been? Very good. And well, so what else? What does the community say? How?
Greetings to Sep on the Mediterranean, 01020 greetings.
Greetings. Okay.
Frank Ames says, is the girl leaving like that? My question is, would Russia and China respond if the United States attacks Iran again? I don't think so. They didn't act the first time.
No, they didn't. They didn't do it with Syria either. I mean, the report with Syria is from the Russians. They didn't have their base there. They had, well, you know, all this activity like what the Russians used to do. When the rebels advanced through the area, they fired into the air to keep others away. The rebels saw this as a sign they didn't want war. And nothing else happened. Syria, which for years had been supporting the dictator in the area, not advancing randomly, the Russians eventually said they no longer wanted to stay because the position was unsustainable. And did they leave? So what happened? Also with Maduro? Well, Russia couldn't do much either. And this time with what's happening there, it looks complicated. It really does. I think there might be Russian intelligence trying to do whatever they can to support the regime. That's very likely, and possibly some other country as well, because we have to remember that Iran and Russia signed an agreement that's kind of like a NATO between them. It's a mutual defense agreement. They signed it twice with the current president Peskian. They did one signing and then did it again. They repeated the signing the following year. I imagine it's also to send a message to the world that they're really united. The point is, well, that this signing happened and it's a signing. I don't think he has many skills right now, not due to circumstances, but simply because of how things are. It doesn't seem to be too important, at least in terms of help, let's say from the army or something like that. Don't you remember this one? Which country was it in the south over there in the former Soviet Union that also had a lot of protests and where soldiers were sent? The Russians. Do you remember this man? Very curious, because I remember for Turkmenistan, for those areas in the south, you know, this man always very well dressed. Let's see if you can figure out who he is right now. Do you remember organizing many protests in this country when you started out?
No, the South.
In the south, yes, in the south, they started doing all these protests. I already knew, well, it's already from Asia, it's not from that country. And then very tough protests started happening. And Russia sends them its help. And then after that comes the war in Ukraine. That was before the war in Ukraine. So then the war in Ukraine. And he says, well, you're going to return the favor. And if not, no, I'm not going to get into a war. And he doesn't get into a war.
I think it's this one, the short guy, the president, short guy, but no.
Who knows? The thing is that Kazakhstan, Kazakhstan here. So let's say that within agreements, there are also betrayals, right? I mean, it's not like agreements always have a lot of validity. Yes.
Yes, it's this Kasim and Omar Tokayev. Does it also mean he often disagrees with Russia?
No, even then he was only saved because the protests were huge. Everyone was already saying he was out. This dictator is one of those dictators who hardly draws any attention. It's also a country with a small population. It's not a country that's, in that sense, you know, very, very, how do you say, full of people of many kinds. In this case, Iran differs because many people are connected internationally and there are many universities. All this also gives them a worldview that makes them want to change their country, right? And that's also an important point, right? And what else?
Greetings to Alfie. Alfie is here too. Well, also, Lily Ollie says, that one, the wind came and knocked down trees, says Lily. People who I think it's raining right now. And I just finished with the laundry? Yes.
I think so.
And those kids are ignoring me. I think it would be unprofessional for me to get up to go get the laundry. Greetings to Peggy, who advocates real democracy for Iran without intervention or theocracy. Ideally, they would remove the regime themselves, right? That would be the healthiest thing. And also, it would make it very clear that the government is chosen by the Iranians. Greetings to Jerez. How are you? To Mr. X. To Jose Sarate. It's 8 degrees here, but all is calm. Sarate says he loves the cold. Greetings, Sarate.
Greetings, Sarate.
Great. Greetings to Pixel Cat. Also, did you sneeze? Wishing you health, money, and love from Leonardo and Tripepe. If Venezuela's economic decisions are going to be directed and managed by the United States, can it be said that there is a foreign dictatorship in Venezuela, he says. My house agrees, but it's okay.
I love it. The cold. Greetings, Sarate. Why? Why isn't that change made? Why not? Because in the end, who is the one that has the power over the people? The power does. At my house degrees, but it's calm, cold. Greetings, Sarate. He says, at my house degrees, but everything's calm. He loves the cold, says Sarate. Well, it would be strange. A sort of weird hybrid dictatorship, wouldn't it? I don't know if there's anything like that in history with that level of hybridity. Not that curious. But Marco Rubio says these are just faces, right? That's his claim, and hopefully that's true, since something deeper seems to be happening. and that it's not just like, oh, we're going to leave it like that, but that the next phase is supposedly going to be a stabilization phase. And then after that, there would be a move toward elections or toward a change, a democratic one, where there would have to be elections again. But under what conditions? Conditions under more repression or elections with a bunch of political prisoners? I mean, under what conditions? That's the main question, right?
Walter greets Walter Osorio. Benedicto Villegas apologizes and agrees.
Sorry, and if that happened, the United States couldn't just take the oil whenever it wants, right? In any case, there could be agreements to do business, right? And in the future, business with other countries as well. But it couldn't continue like that. Forcing me isn't right. That's not how it should work.
Greetings to Benedicto Villegas, who says there's an alliance with China also sending weapons, Iran sending technology. Well, yes, they've sent fuel for the missiles, and recently they stopped a ship. Remember when we discussed the news? The United States had a ship with Chinese weapons bound for Iran, but nothing more was mentioned. But yes, they have sent things, but for them to actually go or send something more obvious, I think that's unlikely. Greetings to Lundo Torres from Venezuela. Greetings, Lundo. Emma Pepe says, I deposited into your Loxo account. Thank you, Emma.
Thank you so much, Emma. Big greetings. I'm grateful to the whole community that supports us. The truth is, well, all that support is super important for us. And thanks to you, we can be here every single day. Obviously, that's what makes it possible. And well, in the description, there are several ways to support the channel. The most used ones, or the ones that are easiest for me to use. If you live elsewhere, it's mainly PayPal or YouTube, right? Those are the main ways. Yes.
I recommend Amazon's Fallout series. It's really good and feels almost predictive. We finished season 1.
Yes, we already want to see the next one. I think it's just one episode right now.
Just one? Yes, it's one episode per week. Greetings to Dan Perez, how are you? To Chavo Ruco and also to Ofe Mendez. She says, greetings, Panterita. Fabi says, help each other with the errands. Greetings to Fabi and Carlos Martinez. She says, sometimes it seems to me that Trump makes things too easy for himself. He really makes things too easy for himself.
I mean, like, let's see. I imagine, I don't know. That's just my interpretation, right? So does he just put up obstacles for himself, or how does it work, or how does he do it? This edit that Colberto did caught my attention. Who was it?
No, it's not Colberto.
I'll tell you, I forget what's this commander's name. But it makes me laugh a lot, because what some people were asking Trump for, and they take this as a comedy.
Isn't it Jon Stewart?
Jon Stewart does a hilarious edit. Because always in these conflicts, what the presidents of the United States did was say, well, let's attack, let's say, I don't know, Afghanistan because of September 11th. I mean, let's go against terrorism. Okay, let's attack, what's his name, Saddam Hussein, because he has weapons of mass destruction. Let's attack, like that. It was always a distraction. The idea is always, well, let's go against the bad guys, right? And that's it. I mean, you would never ever think that a president would say, let's go for Iraq's oil, or let's go for, I don't know, right? I mean, and everyone in the media or the critics, they're like, oh, it's because of the oil. It's an interest, right? And Donald Trump is like, let's go for Venezuela's oil. I mean, he really doesn't hide it in that sense, does he?
No filter?
He has no filter. And then when he suddenly shows up with other politicians like Marco Rubio, who's more cunning and knows more about politics, or this guy, what's his name? Nancy Graham, this Republican congressman. At these press conferences with Trump, they claim they're fighting narco-terrorism and supporting Venezuelan freedom, right? All of that. And then there's a video where Graham is saying we're going to go against the Venezuelans because they're narco-terrorists here, there, everywhere. And then Trump jumps in and says, oh, but what about the oil? And I don't know what else. And he keeps pushing the topic. I mean, yes, obviously all the countries that have an interest want business, right? And they want to take advantage of their business opportunities, right? I mean, it's not like one day Putin just decided, oh, let me invade Ukraine just like that for no reason. Obviously, there are a lot of interests involved, especially everything related to Crimea. That area is rich in oil and has other problems. And that's how it is, right? I mean, there are always those interests in other territories, like in the case of Syria, which is another issue as well. I mean, Syria, there have been many wars there because the area is so important. I mean, you're in the middle of the Middle East or between the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. I mean, everything is right there together. It's ideal. That area is perfect to have, let's say, a base, to have your interests, whatever you want. Just like Greenland right now, I mean, now Greenland, well, right now, with the Arctic melting and this idea that soon, I mean, good or bad, right? But, I mean, they're taking advantage of the misfortune that the whole area is melting to say, well, let's make the most of it. Will it become a trade route now? But, well, on that route, there's a huge piece of land that's really valuable to have there called Greenland.
Yes, it says in rubles. I mean, it's 2 degrees, feels like -4, and it's calm. Last week, it felt like -18. It's warm and comfortable now, says Seastri. The clothes are done for. Francisco, greet Carlos, who says, I see gray. The outcome of the situation in the Caribbean country does look difficult.
I mean,
not sure where things are headed or what will happen. Greetings to Polly and Prince. It's been a while since we've seen you.
Greetings, Polly.
Very good. Greetings to Adilche Sendeño, and she sends greetings to us as well. We're well, thanks to God. Greetings to Polly and Tapatia. She says, the interest has to go exactly?
Exactly. That's the point. The interest must be exact.
Hello, 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 hello. How are you?
How have you been? Very good, he says. When I go out, I walk by Lake Erie in my thermal clothes. So what cold? No, well, yes, with that, is that enough rubles? Hey, well, greetings to everyone who sends us pictures. The other day, Aurelio sent us some, and he also sent us pictures from over in New Mexico. We always appreciate those pictures. To see those very different climates they're experiencing over there, at least for us. Gus23, how have you been? Very good. Panterita Mandrade. Gabriel Duran Castro, excellent work. Thank you very much also for your comment, Gabriel, says Charlie. The United States buys oil from Mexico, he says. Greetings, how have you been, Charlie? Very good, this one says. You're the one who's ashamed. Talking there, sorry, they're getting into private politics. Well, what else?
What does Leonardo Perez say? If Donald Trump is going to control the oil and the economy of Venezuela, will he have to grow a mustache like Maduro? Ha! Well, you saw the other day we showed you El Donaldo Trumpo with the little mustache like the president, not the president.
The president.
The new president of Venezuela. Greetings to Shire. She says it's unrelated but wants to share that her little dog looks good. Funny because she destroyed an ink bottle, oh wow, and now the fur on her chest is purple fluorescent. Okay, and she's kind of acting weird with the glue, haha, come on, get it together. Greetings.
Greetings, very good.
It happened to us that Yoko bit a bee, and half of her face was like this, super swollen. She looked really funny.
Yeah, it was good. One time we were also camping in Veracruz.
Yeah.
And well, in the backpack we had one of those pepper sprays, right? Yeah.
For safety?
For safety, in case of a robbery, right?
It was a road trip from Monterrey to Veracruz.
Yeah, and well, we stayed to camp, so at the sea and all that, right? And well, camping spots, but still, that's how it goes. And so we had a dog that was really good at finding things. I mean, he was a hound, right? Well, a beagle is a hound, right? Yeah.
He's a hound, yeah.
This caught his attention, and the smell made him bite it. We didn't notice because we were asleep, but woke up to his crying. Pepper had gotten on him. I mean, he was licking the sand, right? Yeah.
He was eating the sand?
Licking the sand to get rid of the itch from, obviously everyone there with that spicy sensation in their eyes and all that. But anyway.
But I'm sure his was worse than theirs.
Yes, of course.
But well, he didn't do it again. He didn't bite a can again.
Not a single strange can. No, it was a very intense match.
Greetings too, says Mars. The United States doesn't need Venezuela's oil. The interest is to keep it from the Chinese. China has been bleeding Venezuela dry for decades in exchange for military and surveillance technology.
That's for me. I also think that's the first point. I mean, if they need the oil, of course they need it. Look, I'm going to tell you why. It's a very heavy oil, and they've said it's a very thick oil. And who do you think is doing it for some time now? Houston has a problem, like in the movie, or like in Polo's reality. But anyway, Houston has a serious problem right now. In the refineries, they need that specific type of oil in order to keep refining. And well, the little they could buy from the small amount that Venezuela produces, they were buying it right now. Well, it's going to work out great for them because they'll be able to get all that oil. Right now, there's very little oil being produced. I mean, right now, the oil capacity is equivalent to 0.9% of Venezuela. At most, putting it at the maximum, it's the point of the percentage that reaches the global level. So it's not really a percentage that makes it a great business. In that sense, I agree with what he's saying. It's more like, well, no, I mean, if they need it, because they do need it, but it's not something that's going to change things a lot for them. What you do limit, though, is the progress in the area that concerns the United States the most about China's advancement, which is the military aspect. What worries them is that they're already on the continent, militarily speaking, and that at some point they might even build a base. And with this, well, they're already here on the continent, right? That's the part that worries them the most. And with that, they say, okay, they can do business in Argentina, in Ecuador, in Mexico. I mean, even in the United States, they do business. The problem isn't the business. The problem is the military aspect. The problem is the strategic part of, hey, are we going to control the Panama Canal or not? I mean, those kinds of things are clearly not what they want to allow in the United States. No, that's part of what's going on, right?
Greetings to Albino Perez. This channel is excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Albino.
Also too, says Jires, says, nothing to do with it. Oh no, but I read this. Greetings to Phoebus as well. Good divine seeds, Pepe, Pepe, Pepe. Greetings. I arrived late. Catch me up. Thank you for always keeping me informed. Greetings to Juan Vasquez.
Greetings, Juan. Very good. Where did you leave off? Or are you just getting here? Or how's everyone doing? We'll give you a summary.
There are many things that are better for you.
Yeah, it's just that it's everything, you know? Tell me one thing and I'll update you on that, but not on everything.
Because if we already forgot, already halfway through, says David Para, the Chinese already give a lot of loans to the government and they used to spend it and on other things. They said they were going to build bridges and they never did.
They didn't do it. They weren't built, of course. What China suddenly did in other countries, for example, in Africa, is that they said, I'm going to build you bridges. I mean, the whole loan, but I build it myself. Yes, because if not, the money would just disappear or get changed.
There's a coup and that's it, he says. Marilena, no, if the little animals are careless, they get into a lot of mischief, they get into trouble. Greetings to the birthday people and encouragement to those who are sick. Greetings, Marilena. Greetings. No, but there are puppies that, I mean, especially when they're little, it's just amazing. If you stop watching them for 30 minutes and they're being naughty, they've probably already eaten a cactus or gotten into something. Some are just really mischievous. Greetings to Miel Divina. She says, well, the topic of Iran is up next. What's happened with Iran, Tehran? You want to know what's happened with Iran? Is that your topic, Iran, Tehran?
They're in what I call the final phase, right? I mean, that's how I see it, a final phase, either the end of the regime or the end of the protests. But they're at a point where, well, they're going to start making tougher decisions. We're already seeing a strike even in the oil sector. I mean, today an oil strike started. What comes next after that? I mean, what paralyzes a country like Iran more than the oil sector? So if you have the universities shut down, I mean, just think that every student from the universities, from the 17 universities that are shut down, every student who is protesting is, well, a student who possibly has their parents, their grandparents, their family. I mean, they have their whole family there. Well, they're extremely worried because they're at the protests. But on the other hand, if something happens to them, I just saw the image of the morgue, you know? So there were lines of parents, yes, looking for their children. I mean, lines of parents. But each of those parents who has a child protesting, well, obviously they're also extremely angry. That's the least they can be with the regime. Many of those people are government workers or bureaucrats themselves. So it's a country that doesn't. If it attacks itself like it's doing right now, I mean, with the whole regime attacking, it ends up not working, it collapses. Because who would want to go to work another day? If you lost a child, if you don't know where you are, if they have him at home, I mean, and maybe it's not your child, maybe it's a friend's child. Ultimately, people in that region are experiencing fear and nervousness. To me, that's the phase they're in now. That's why Mr. X mentioned it a while ago. Astrid also told me this afternoon, and Jerez is also one of them. It's going to be an interesting night tonight. I mean, it's going to be a night where we'll be waking up during the night, right? And seeing what's happening. And if something serious happens, then obviously we'll talk about it. Like when we had to stay up until 1 in the morning broadcasting about what happened with Maduro.
3 in the morning.
We stayed until 3 a.m. and returned the next morning. Well, to officially report the fall from back then, yeah, it's probably going to be another one of those intense weekends, right? And, well, I didn't even feel like going out with this cold, right? So, well, with great pleasure, we'll be here talking. That's what I would say as a little summary of what's happening, right? Mielvina, he says. And Pemex, fine, thanks, says the ruin. But the lady from the palace says we're all owners of Pemex. I want to receive some profit. And in the end, it has always been a state-owned company that basically absorbs what it generates, let's say, into the well-being, so to speak, of the country. But the thing is, that company has to generate profits. It has to grow. It has to, and that's what, well, you don't see, right? On the contrary, right? It actually looks more worn out. The friends we have working there at Petroleus tell us everything is fine, outdated. Basically, nothing has changed. They don't get paid well. The people who work there live well, whatever you want, but they say there's not good security. Everything is more or less the same. It's not like they're renovating or anything. No. So, well, I'm not saying it's falling apart or declining like Petróleos de Venezuela Sociedad Anónima did, but it is, let's say, unfortunate. And what happened with the refinery? Well, that's another story, right? I mean, that's another huge issue too.
Luis Manuel says, hi Pepe, is it true Trump plans to attack Mexico, or has the president or Scheinbaum responded? Regards.
Well, he says that every time he needs to get attention or generate some kind of reaction, he brings up that topic, right? And now he's bringing it up again. Yes, there were reactions also from Republicans and from Mogartas telling him that this simply can't happen, that it shouldn't happen. Even less so with a country that collaborates. That's a friend. That is, in any case, yes, collaboration, like right there at that point. And I've even seen people who are very critical of the president, right, or of the government, who have come out to say on this issue, well, no, I mean, on this issue, I totally support that there shouldn't be forced interventions. Never. No, yes, democratic, obviously, with its problems and with its issues, but that's not how things are done, no, and even less with a friendly country. So on that topic, it really catches my attention that there have been some people out there, influencers, right? They reportedly began agreeing that the intervention occurred. And obviously they got slammed. They really got slammed by all kinds of people who said, hey, hold on, buddy, because that's not how things are. And I insist, all right? This one? Well, I'm sure that it's possible to have a very deep, very interesting collaboration. And yes, it's possible to reduce the problem of trafficking. If things are done right, the goal is to do them correctly, isn't it? And that it's not like that constant improvisation that this Trump does, which is basically improvisation based on the circumstances. Sometimes his move works, but it's often improvisation.
Definitely more exaggeration. Yes, Lily, I accidentally tasered myself when I activated it in my bag. Summary. Yes, it hurts.
Well, yes.
I imagine for you, when bigger people come in, you need more taser shots, as they say.
Yeah, I imagine it's like alcohol, right? I mean, the bigger you are, the less the taser affects you. Let's say no, so yeah.
Adan Perez compares diplomacy with Iran to chess, where everyone explains moves, no one moves the right pieces, and time keeps ticking. Hi Adan, and hi to David Para. He says there are many Iranians in Venezuela. Who copied them? I don't know, but I think someone did, he says. David. Greetings, David.
Hey, David, how are you? Good.
Greetings, Cristobal. He says, in prison, Maduro's diet is just bread and water. Greetings to Riyaj. He says, hello, I think I arrived late, but greetings from the city of protest. Greetings, Riyaj. Greetings also to Pixel Cat, he says. Which of all the cities of protests?
Greetings. Very good. Yes, it's true. The intelligence planes have been flying, but it's been months already. That's true. It happens over and over. They're there, the planes, they come and go. They're mostly they're drones, they're intelligence drones that have been coming in. And how do we know? Because they turn on the transponder. So that's how we find out. Because if they didn't turn it on, we wouldn't even know, right? but they turn on the transponder on purpose. Well, to show themselves, right? To say, here we are, we're not hiding. It's pressure. It's also psychological, doing this kind of pressure. Look, well, actually, I have a note about this right here, about what's been happening. Let me get it here. We'll show it, because this is, well, interesting. Obviously not this part. This was posted by Luis Cardenas. Yes, Luis Cardenas, a journalist from NBC Noticias, and he posted this image on Twitter. No, there's the JLM Noticias logo. So actually JLM is the one who released it. Jose Luis Morales, well, also a journalist, right? And he posted this image. Where was this movement seen? Here in this area. Yes, according to what Luis Cardenas reports, he says, the Diamond DA 62 MPP was spotted conducting intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance operations over Talpa de Allende, an area tied to alleged cartel camps. Jalisco New Generation, where it is believed Nemesio Seguera could be hiding. So yes, there are movements, but that's already a constant, isn't it? Sometimes we find out through these kinds of tools like Fly Radar, and then sometimes we'll know, right? I mean, sometimes not. I mean, sometimes you just know they're operating, but they don't say it, right? I think right now there are maybe more visible movements. Let's say yes, exactly. Mostly drones, especially drones. Yes, there have been some planes, also intelligence planes that have been approaching Baja California, actual planes. And drugs, no? And also other ships that have been approaching around there in the Caribbean, not in the Pacific. That kind of movement has also been seen there, right? Yes, he says. What kind of country are we going to leave to our children? He says. Cristobal. Greetings, Cristobal. How have you been? Greetings, greetings.
Zarate says Maduro didn't know how to do things right. He was too blatant selling coke to Florida and got what he deserved. Greetings, Zarate.
Greetings, Zarate. Greetings. Yes, very shameless. You're absolutely right.
Mauro claims Venezuela funded many Democrats' campaigns in the United States.
Greetings, Mauro.
But I don't know about that.
Says Charlie. What does his voice sound like?
That Maduro paid for Democrats' campaigns in the United States?
Well, even the campaign. Wait, even Donald Trump's campaign too.
Delcy also contributed money.
Delcy Rodriguez put $500,000 into Trump's campaign. I mean, let's call things as they are. I mean, those kinds of governments, those kinds of things, they put money wherever they can, Democrats, Republicans, whoever, and they'll accept the money. I mean, this doesn't stop because then they start arguing, saying no, but that's how it is. That money drew a lot of attention because it was through Petróleos de Venezuela, SA, United States. Petróleos de Venezuela, SA, also operates there in the United States, and through that company, they put in $500,000 at the time. For this event that Trump held, do you remember? Was it a specific event? It was an event that Trump held, and just like that, look, $500,000, it was an event. That's what he did. Yes, no, but it was an event. But let's say they do put money in, and they believe that, in part, that little bit of money that came in is because he has favored them. It's not that he cares about the $500,000. It's insignificant to Trump, but it's the principle. Does he care about things like that? If you show a certain respect, it may also be reciprocated to a certain extent.
To some extent, who was Egypt's president? Or
also,
he put in $1 million.
A little million.
So, does that mean he died? There are so many laws helping them, she says. Marilena doesn't offer her hand today. It's me. On a curve while overtaking, we were almost hit. I suffered a neck sprain. It was horrible. People are so reckless. They almost braked in front of us. We went off the road. Take care of yourselves.
Elena, are you still in Chihuahua or leaving? You really have to be very careful on the streets, highways, and so on, because it's really tough out there. There are a lot of people.
Yes, that's what they say. Even with everything falling apart, they still give away banana plantations, oil to the Cuban regime, and I know in Mexico we also give away.
That they still send them, right? You say, just imagine, right? I mean,
I don't get why gas prices in the United States keep dropping. Some places are about $1, while here they stay the same. Gas prices are dropping internationally, so why is it still so expensive here?
I don't know if it's reached here. It's a tough situation, and it's like 25, 27 already. Just imagine. I mean, it's already more than $1 per liter. There it's per gallon in the United States during this, and oil just had a small breakout. Maybe. We should keep checking it this week, right? But for the friends who follow this, let's see if that's the case or not. But just by eye, by a good look, see, yes, oil broke upwards, that's right, now and then down again. But you notice that it hadn't broken the downward trend. Now you see how it hadn't broken, it hadn't broken, it hadn't broken, it hadn't broken. That's in 1 day periods, and here it broke. I'm just noticing it now. I hadn't realized because I was really bored. Oil wasn't moving. It would rise but never reach this line, then fall, rise again and fall back. But now it did this. So that's something. Well, as you can see, it's unusual, isn't it? I mean, at some point I figured it had to break a little, go up, and maybe stay around here as long as it doesn't shoot up. But this breakout is a small warning. According to this, Trump intends to bring oil down to $50. Yeah, it's at 58. So the idea...
Per barrel?
Trump wants to lower the price per barrel, which is why they're interested. When they said no or I can't, who just said that? Mr. X or Mars? About the oil, saying they don't care? They actually do care a lot. Because he realizes that lowering oil to $50, if he manages to do it, which isn't easy. He made agreements with the Middle East, which promised and is delivering to produce 3 times more oil to lower prices. There's also the issue of Venezuela and fracking in the United States, which has lowered oil prices due to easier permitting.
Real, baby, the real?
Yeah, I mean, with him, those permits are easy. They just get approved, do as much fracking as you want. So if he manages to bring oil down to $50, he's got it. In terms of pressure on Putin, he'd have it easy. And if not, there would be doubts like, let's see, I mean, oil is super cheap. No money would come in between the pressure from the blockades and the low prices, so not enough money would be coming into Russia to sustain the war, so it would be easily controllable. And that's where things take an interesting turn, right? Besides, well, right now, having this possibility of a low price and you being the one who knows when the price is low and when it's going to go up, well, that also gives you
Yes.
major profit potential.
But not right now. I mean, right now he's still upset with Putin because he's still making it difficult for him to get that prize he wants, which is to say, I ended the war between Ukraine and Russia. That's why it's also a move about oil, because he wants to break it somewhere, right? Shout out to David Parago.
There was nothing else I said. How was it, Mr. X? But yeah, I didn't go. Okay. Shout out to Marsha. Shout out to Mr. X.
Shout out to Zenaida Aguilar. I hope and pray to God that Trump goes to Nicaragua and gets rid of that dictator, Daniel Ortega. The people hate him, says Zenaida. Hopefully.
Shout out to Zenaida. Check out what Mark says. By the way, about gold. Gold is about to reach another all-time high again. I mean, it did so last week on the 6th. Well, yes, this past week. On the 6th, gold nearly broke through, and on the 9th Friday, since it's closed today. So we'll see on Monday if it breaks through, but if on Friday, which is usually a bit bearish, it almost broke through, well, I think it can break through, and if gold breaks through, then possibly silver, platinum, and 1,000 other metals could also take off. It's been a really strange week, because this week brought this big surge. Well, there was already a correction here, but there was a surge, and the tech stocks also had a surge all this week. Well, it closed. Look, all-time high. The S&P 500, the all-time high for the 500 largest companies in the United States, closed on Friday. Today it did... yesterday it hit an all-time high, and it's crazy because it's not even news anymore, right? I mean, sure, if you check the financial news, you'll find it, but it's not a headline that gets much attention. Why? Well, because of how things are right now, you know? There are more interesting news stories now. For example, I'm about to start a rumor that Putin mocks Trump by imitating his dancing.
We need to do some
videos
of her for a few days.
Not doing it like that it is.
Because this one refused to dance, even as a joke. This one says the gas price hasn't gone down here. Look, doesn't it say so? Here, a gallon averages more than $4.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's expensive.
I mean, the price varies, so for sure. I mean, here in Mexico, it also varies, but not that much, not that much. Yeah, not that much, it says. Jose Mendez, greetings from the Canary Islands.
Very good. Greetings, they say.
There are no Canaries in the Canary Islands, nor any in the Virgin Islands. Greetings to Jose Mendez. Mars says what's going up is copper. Mars says, and Mourinho says so too. The oil agreement between the Partido Revolucionario Institucional y Acción Nacional isn't new. It's been happening for years.
You're right. That's absolutely right. So since the Partido Revolucionario Institucional y Acción Nacional, since the Partido Revolucionario Institucional, the Partido Acción Nacional and all that, have they been selling or giving away oil to Cuba? Yes, that's true. We also have to be very clear about that. And it's a reality. I mean, it's not exactly a good thing that Morena made other agreements and I don't know what, that they created this company, I don't know what, for welfare and I don't know what else to handle the oil. But this has always been going on. We have to remember that specifically the Partido Revolucionario Institucional was one of the main supporters of the Cuban regime. So in that sense, the Partido Revolucionario Institucional really can't come here and give lessons about what you shouldn't do. I mean, come on, man, And well, actually, the EL at the time, the Mexican government was also operating and passing on information. When there was some kind of rebellion or whatever, they would help them, and it was also retroactive. I mean, for example, when there was a case here in Monterrey, for example, a case of a guy who kidnapped a girl who was a daughter of a governor. He took her to Cuba thinking, well, in Cuba they'll help me because, well, he was a guy from the League, September 2nd, right?
September 2nd?
Yes, it's a league, kind of like a leftist, let's say radical. So he goes to Cuba saying, look, well, they're going to help me out, right? And the Cubans caught him, they arrested him, and that's it. I mean, they didn't allow it, right? They freed the girl and everything. I mean, no, they weren't going to get into trouble with the country, especially not with a government that has been supporting them. In that case, well, like I said, yeah, that's the thing, he says. Marcio says, I started buying gold when it went over 1,000. I also bought silver at 14. Silver is about 70 now, though I'm not sure of the exact price. Did you make a good profit there? And what about the jewelers and all the people who work with gold and silver? I imagine if you made a good purchase, well, there comes a really good profit, right? Yes, Fidel's revolution was organized in Mexico, yes.
Yes, here with the people.
And they trained and everything, yes.
Dan Perez asks if they'll go to Iran or not. That's the question.
That's the one. That's a really good one. Who says this? Says
Adam Perez.
Greetings
to Mr. X. It wasn't me. Oh, you didn't read it to him. I'm going further down, Mr. says. The president really did lose the desire to attack Taiwan and is practically keeping quiet, says Mr. X. Listen.
By the way, speaking of Taiwan, I came across a movie, that one at Cannes from Taiwan. This one. Let's see if we check it out. 1,000 trailers. It looks interesting. I'll check it out later to see what it's about. I don't know what it's about. I mean, I'm not really recommending it because I don't know what it's about.
But does it say Tapatia? There's a comedian who does a great Trump impression and makes jokes about the wars Trump says he's won. His name is Louis Mack.
I'll check it out.
Wismar, the one that doesn't quite convince me 100% is the new guy they put on Saturday Night Live. Yeah, not really. I don't think he's that funny, but I don't know if it's his fault or if it's the fault of the people who write the jokes.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that you put yourself in their shoes.
Wasn't it this one before?
What's their name? This one?
Baldwin,
yes.
Baldwin, yes. And what if I get a little video for me to watch after the imitation of the Avavava? I'll check it. Should I send it on Twitter or where? But yes, I'll check it right now, he says. The parrot is...
I know who he is now.
That's right. The parrot is a small animal. Okay.
Yeah, he talks the same. I've seen him, but he doesn't do it.
How am I supposed to check it?
Yeah, then it's McLeod.
Yeah, then McLeod. I'll check it. Greetings, Patia Panterita, Benedicto Lilio Ponsapon. Greetings, how have you been? Very good.
Let's go, guys. We're on WhatsApp and Telegram with channels and live stream notifications. Plus, we're also on X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Big hug. Hope we're all well. Have a great weekend. We'll be here early, even into the morning. We need to report since things are active, but we'll continue broadcasting what's happening. A big greeting. Thank you very much, Lily and Patia. To all the channel members, a huge hug for supporting and sustaining this channel. A hug also to everyone who sends us a super chat and to the whole community that's subscribed. Obviously not. Greetings to Jerez Armando Roble. Greetings all the way to Kobe Roble. Greetings.
Greetings, Lucianaga.
Lucianaga, big greetings. Martin, everyone, Mr. X, thanks. See you later. Goodbye. We interrupt your programming.
Thank you for tuning in. Honestly, this is PP Live. The truth is intense, tough. The unusual is real tough. We analyze it here. Global perspective. Don't miss out. Tune in to the PP Live channel. Controlling the PP signal and Astrid telling it like it is. Raw journalism. Here it's respected. Turn on the alert. Don't lose track until next time. Yes, sir. We're taking attendance. Subscribe.